All right, so the recording has officially started, and the consent statement I just shared is now in the chat. So welcome once again. My name is Micaiah Guy. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm speaking to you today from DuPont, Washington, on the traditional lands of the Coast Salish peoples. I am the Director of Equity and Grants here at Serve Washington. Welcome to the new and recompete formula, our FGA call. We at Serve Washington are sincerely appreciative of your interest in AmeriCorps funding and in exploring ways that you can leverage national service to meet and address local needs. We have for you 5 objectives that we would like to tackle today during this technical assistance meeting. First, we would like to provide an overview and the purpose of AmeriCorps state funding. We want to explain who is eligible to apply, outline the process and the timeline to apply for that funding, review key highlights to this year's application, and offer helpful hints and tips. And lastly, and likely most importantly, answer any questions that you may have.
Questions about AmeriCorps? Well, you've come to the right place, because we're here to help. First off, let's clear up one thing right away. You might be wondering how to say or spell AmeriCorps. Sometimes people pronounce the P, but don't make that same mistake. AmeriCorps is alive and well, just spelled with a silent P. So think of Apple Core or Core of the Earth. Now that we have that clear, what exactly is AmeriCorps anyways? AmeriCorps is simply Americans of all ages and backgrounds dedicating their time and skills to get things done. There we go. So how does AmeriCorps get things done? More than 80,000 Americans across the country join AmeriCorps each year, and all of them are tackling different problems in different ways. For example, AmeriCorps members help families attain affordable homes. They mentor students so that they stay in school. Perhaps there is a tornado, a flood, a forest fire, or a hurricane. AmeriCorps members also help communities recover from disasters. There's so many more things that AmeriCorps members do, but if we said it all, we'd be here all day. Why do we call them members, you ask? AmeriCorps members spend anywhere from 3 months to a year dedicating their time and skills to serve. They can volunteer with nonprofits, schools, public agencies, and community and faith-based organizations. And in case you were wondering, there are a few perks AmeriCorps members get, including money to pay for college, student loan deferment, training, living allowance, health benefits, and job opportunities with leading employers. Not too bad, right? All right. What's the purpose of AmeriCorps? Like the military or the Peace Corps, AmeriCorps is a way to serve your country. AmeriCorps members make Americans safer, stronger, and healthier, and they strengthen our communities. But above all, AmeriCorps members get things done. That's it. That's what AmeriCorps is. Learn more about AmeriCorps at AmeriCorps.gov.
So I took a glance here at the participant list, and I know that those of you who are here are like, I've seen that video before. I know what it is. You do know how and what AmeriCorps is. And so your question may be, well, how is Washington getting things done? And so we have that little summary slide for you here. Washington currently has 700 local service sites of AmeriCorps members and teams and organizations serving with over $35 million and funding going towards getting things done. We have over 5,000 AmeriCorps seniors and members working together to address local and national priorities. And we are very, very proud of the AmeriCorps service that is happening here in Washington State. Now, with that said, AmeriCorps brings people together to tackle some of the country's most pressing challenges through national service and volunteering. Members and volunteers serve with organizations dedicated to the improvement of communities. AmeriCorps is helping to make service a cornerstone of our national culture. To achieve this end, AmeriCorps funding is awarded to eligible organizations that propose to engage AmeriCorps members in evidence-informed and evidence-based interventions to strengthen communities. State service commissions like Serve Washington receive AmeriCorps funding from the federal agency, which is AmeriCorps, and then we pass this funding through to local programs. AmeriCorps funds are funneled through state service commissions by way of two different funding streams. There's the state competitive funding, which occurs each fall, and which the due date for that was actually January 4th of this year, 2024, and it started in October this year. And then the formula funding, which is our current process that we're in right now. For the competitive process in the fall, funding is awarded by AmeriCorps and applicants compete nationally. And so at that national level, competing with all organizations across the country. That competition, as you well know, is a good fit for large programs that meet national priorities, or programs with a moderate to strong evidence base. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to identify what your evidence base is a little later. For the formula process, which is the current process, funds are awarded to programs by Serve Washington directly, whereas Serve Washington staff and commissioners are making those funding decisions. And the competition is only within Washington state. And so the competition is here within local programs. And for this grant opportunity, Serve Washington is projecting approximately $4 million available, give or take. Please be aware that is significantly less than what we have received in the past few years. So please keep that in mind and understand that a large portion of that is already dedicated to continuation grantees. And so those programs that are currently within that 3-year cycle of their AmeriCorps grant. And this formula competition is a good fit for smaller programs. And so for those programs that are between 10 and 35 MSYs, programs that are meeting local priorities, that propose to operate in newly established, can be single or multiple focus area, and or programs that are building their evidence base. And so you're not quite at that moderate to strong, but you're building it, you're getting there. And so we bring this to your attention just in case you are here today and you're thinking that perhaps competitive competition is a better fit for you. Maybe that's something that you want to consider and think about in the near future. Please have a conversation with your program officer if you are a recompete organization, or if you're a new organization, please reach out to Serve Washington via the general email inbox so that we can get you connected and start having those conversations. Serve Washington does project the next competitive competition to occur in the fall of this year, and so around that September-October timeframe. If you are not yet ready to launch an operational program with AmeriCorps members in service, a better fit for you may be the planning grant. We do have our planning grant competition open now, and you can find that on our website. And again, that technical assistance call was earlier this morning, and that recording will be available on our website. So overall, the focus of AmeriCorps funding is guided by the Serve America Act. And in April of 2009, the Edward M. Kennedy Serve America Act was signed into law by President Barack Obama. Through this law, Congress directed AmeriCorps, the federal agency, to focus national service in 6 service areas where service can make a major impact. Those areas are here before you: disaster services, economic opportunity, education, environmental stewardship, healthy futures, and veterans and military families. While these areas have been well-funded in the past, applicants are surely welcome to apply for funding under any focus area that proposes to use AmeriCorps members in evidence-informed or evidence-based interventions that are to strengthen, the purpose is to strengthen communities. Were this the competitive funding cycle, here is where we would talk about the National AmeriCorps funding priorities. And so we just talk about focus areas. Here we would talk about national funding priorities, but as this is a local competition, and we really want everyone to be aware that we are focusing heavily on local priorities this year. We want to focus on Serve Washington's funding priorities. And so please be aware that if you would like to know more about AmeriCorps' funding priorities for that larger opportunity in the fall, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, the NOFO will be available on our website along with this additional information, the RFGA and all of that. But as for Serve Washington and for this particular opportunity, Serve Washington's funding priorities are service strategies that are driven by community identified priorities. And so those who are going out into the community and finding out what their needs and their wants and their desires are for what's happening there. Organizations that are led and staffed by people that reflect those communities being served. And in that, programs that strive to recruit and select service members that reflect those communities being served. Programs that support communities that are historically excluded and or underserved from government services. Programs that are addressing structural and institutional inequities or increasing opportunities to achieve sustainable change. Models that utilize service as a strategy to develop career pathways and lead to industry recognized credentials. Models that demonstrate an implemented commitment to justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion, belonging, and access, and programs that provide additional benefits to their members, such as member assistance, including mental health benefits, housing assistance, transportation, childcare, etc. So let's pivot to talking about AmeriCorps members. AmeriCorps members must spend a majority of their time participating in direct services. Direct service addresses human need or the environment in one form or the other, and includes engaging directly with people to support change or performing a service that is involved in creating community impact. Administrative tasks necessary to perform direct service are inherent within those services. However, programs should caution against excessive administrative tasks or administrative tasks that are unrelated to direct service. Now, indirect service, defined as training and fundraising, it is allowable, but it should be limited. The most important information to relay is that at least 70% of member time must be spent doing direct service, with a maximum of 20% of that time dedicated to training, and 10%, a maximum of 10% of that time within there can be dedicated to fundraising. Now, if you're looking for a capacity building position as opposed to direct service, you may want to research AmeriCorps Vista, in which you would be connecting with our regional office. Another caution that you should be aware of is that AmeriCorps is not intended to duplicate services already available in the locality of the program, and organizations may not displace or supplant an employee or volunteer position within an AmeriCorps position. And as you're writing out your narratives, your executive summary, you're answering these questions, and boy, do we have some fun questions in there for you. Please be aware of your language. Please understand that AmeriCorps members serve, they perform service. They are defined by law as a participant in an approved national service position. They are not employees, and organizations should refrain from language such as work or job when you are describing the service. Right up front, I want to draw your attention to the requirement for the minimum number of member service years. That is a standard for Serve Washington in the formula process. And MSY, as again, looking at the participant list, you all know is equivalent to one 1,700 hour full-time position. And Serve Washington will be funding applications that request between 10 and 35 MSYs. Now, this can be a combination of full-time or less than full-time. However, You put that together, that makes it work for the individuals that you are looking to recruit. Don't forget those waivers if you need to make any changes in that, but please be aware of that. Organizations that are interested in less than 10. So again, that waiver situation that I was just discussing, you can consult the RFGA for other resources and that waiver on there. Organizations that are looking at more than 35 MSYs should really strongly consider the fall competitive process, which does not have a maximum placed on your requested MSYs. And again, reach out through that general email inbox so that we can get you connected to an experienced program officer to have those conversations with you. Now, provided that your organization falls right in that sweet spot between the 10 and 35 member service year requirement, the following entities are available or are eligible to apply: nonprofit organizations, institutions of higher education, state and local governments, and tribal governments. Organizations must also have a UEI number, the unique entity identifier, and employer identification number, the EIN, and must be registered in the system for awards management, the government system. If that is brand new language to you, please refer to the RFGA. All of the appropriate websites and definitions are there for you. Please make sure all of these registrations and appropriate numbers are there and are in place when you apply for this AmeriCorps funding. Now the process. You have your account, you've done your application, you've read it over, you had someone else read it, and now you submit it in eGrants. It goes through Serve Washington to review for compliance. At that point, we're checking to make sure you've not exceeded page limits, that you've answered all of the questions, that your budget is lining up and you've itemized where you should and everything is what it should be. And then the grant review reviews it for about 3 to 4 weeks. The grant review committee this year will be a combination of commissioners and community reviewers. The grant review committee will then make a recommendation to the commission votes, and then awards are made. Here you will see the timeline that is there available for you within the RFGA. More on the process and timeline are within the RFGA as well. Now let's talk key terms. If you are familiar with AmeriCorps, and I know that many of you here today are, you are familiar with the federal NOFO. The NOFO, or the Notice of Funding Opportunity, is the federal opportunity by way in which applicants apply during the national competition in the fall. And then the RFGA, or the Request for Grant Applications, is Serve Washington's notice to apply. You will see on the front page of the formula RFGA a notice that informs applicants we use an abridged version of the NOFO. And this just means that it's very similar, but we've eliminated portions that don't really apply to the local state competition. So please use the RFGA for this competition. You may refer to the NOFO for maybe further definition, but instructions and questions will all be in the RFGA. Now, we've already addressed the difference between competitive and formula grant opportunities, but as a refresher, the competitive competition competes nationally every fall, and the formula grant opportunity, which is this competition, competes at the state level every spring. You may also hear or see the terms cost reimbursement and fixed amount, and this is the type of financial arrangement for your grant agreement. All new applicants must apply under the cost reimbursement model, and this model has a detailed line item budget with a required percentage of match that must be documented. It looks like most standard grant application budgets, and the fixed amount model is a bit different. You must have permission to apply as a fixed amount grant. Fixed amount grants are reimbursed based on a monthly flat rate, which is tied to the number of members actively in service. Fixed amount grants do not have a required match and do not report on match, but must still provide program income to operate successfully. While there can be benefits to the fixed amount model, it requires a lot of autonomy and therefore has to be an earned status. Therefore, this is something that, as I said, does require conversation and consultation with a program officer here at Serve Washington. And the program officers here at Serve Washington are Sean and Mary. Lastly, you may hear terms such as a new grantee, recompete grantee, and a continuation grantee. New grantees are just that. They are new to AmeriCorps funding. Recompetes are those applicants who have finished their 3-year grant cycle and are looking for a new 3-year grant cycle. And then continuations are those who are currently funded entering year 2 or 3 of their 3-year cycle. Continuations, if in good standing, do have priority funding. And so remember, I referenced above that a good bulk of the funding is dedicated to continuations. And while new and recompete grantees, they are competing head to head. Now, kind of the meat, but let's hit some highlights of the RFGA. The goal today is not to regurgitate the RFGA to you. I do hope you've had an opportunity to view it. I know it was just released on Friday. However, I do want to provide a brief explanation as to some of the requirements. First, the page limits. Applications may not exceed 10 pages. These page limits, of course, apply to the one-page face sheet, which is automatically generated by the grants management system, and then the narrative sections, which are the executive summary, program design, organizational capability, and cost effectiveness and budget adequacy. Not included in that are your evaluation plans, your evidence, your reports, your logic model, your budget, your performance measurement modules, and any supplemental documents. And this is all outlined within the RFGA in explicit detail. The narratives have changed a bit from previous opportunities. There are a total of 11 criteria to respond to. 4 under program design, 2 under organizational capability, and 4 under cost effectiveness and budget adequacy. Please be sure to reference the RFGA for all narrative sections. This funding also requires a cost share. First-time cost reimbursement applicants are required to provide a cost match of 24% each year for the first 3-year funding period. That match then increases in future funding years up to 50% during year 10, if so awarded. We would also like to note that a 24% match may or may not be enough to operate your program. While the federal share can be upwards of $27,000 per MSY, successful programs have reported an overall cost per MSY of more like $30,000 to $40,000, depending on your program design. There is a substantial cash and in-kind need to operate successful AmeriCorps programs. It is mentioned in the RFGA that this is a public-private partnership. You do need to have diversified funding streams in order to successfully operate an AmeriCorps program. This year, the maximum cost per MSY, which is the amount you can ask for from the Federal AmeriCorps agency, is $27,000 per MSY. Now, before getting too excited about that, I want to draw your attention to the cost side of that equation and the minimum living allowance this year, which is $18,700 for full-time members. This doesn't really leave a lot of federal dollars to operate. And so again, these awards are intended to be a public-private partnership. The federal government was never intended to be the sole funder of this programming. And criminal history checks. Do not forget to budget for your criminal history checks. AmeriCorps federal statute requires very specific guidance in the area of criminal history checks. The statute is most likely different from a standard organizational policy, and you must adhere to that statute. In short, every staff member will receive a check on the National Sex Offender Public website, a state of service check known as the Washington or WATEC check, and then a state of residence check if applying from outside of Washington, and an FBI fingerprint check. Each check must be completed and reviewed, or what we consider to be adjudicated, and documented before a staff member can begin work on the grant and a member can begin to serve. We've provided what we believe is the approximate cost for these checks when using AmeriCorps resources to complete them. Now, this covers the National Sex Offender Public website, the Washington check, and the FBI check, but it does not take into consideration costs for out-of-state checks if a member applies from outside of Washington. Again, these are just projected costs for using AmeriCorps vendors. There are prohibited and unallowable activities, and so by law, there are a number of activities that are not allowed, such as attempting to influence legislation, engaging in religious instruction, providing direct benefit to a for-profit business, providing abortion services, duplicating services, displacing paid workers, and so much more. If you are a new applicant, please consult the supplemental guidance for the full definition so that you're not inadvertently proposing a program with prohibited and or unallowable activities. And then finally, for performance measures, please carefully review the performance measure instructions. Only opt into national performance measures if it's truly reflective of your program design. You are able to determine your performance measures. So applicant performance measures are allowable. One aligned measure, output and outcome are required. Serve Washington and AmeriCorps, but as this is a Serve Washington determined funding, Serve Washington values the quality of performance measures over the quantity of performance measures. As you are developing your budget, we want you to understand that we believe you to be the expert on your program. We trust you to make the budgeting decisions that are best to sustain your programs and deliver quality and impactful service to the communities in which you serve. Now that I've said that, we do have 2 required trainings that have to be included within your budget. There is a 2-day meeting held in July for all Washington State subgrantees. Last year it was in person. Virtual has been an option in previous years and is determined on an annual basis. And then there is a full week training held somewhere in the Pacific region. In the past, it's been in Portland, Salt Lake City, Albuquerque. Last year it was in San Diego, and this year it's in Minneapolis. This conference is for subgrantees operating within the Western United States and territories. We don't know where the next conference will be held, and so we often say to budget for Los Angeles, California as a general price point. For those applying under the cost reimbursement financial agreement, those applications do require submission of a comprehensive budget. Make sure things are adding up. Everything adds up. There is a budget worksheet for operational grants that can be found on our website. As you complete your budget narrative, please be sure to fully explain the calculations for each line item and assure that everything is equal to what's put in there. For example, in the narrative, if you say that the travel to meeting X equals that $1,186, then in the narrative, you need to show how you came up with that $1,186. Right there, that example, what was included: airfare, ground transportation, lodging, all of those things. Itemize it down to the most minute detail. And also be sure to itemize fringe benefits and salary per role. Do not lump sum it. Also, for cost reimbursement, if you are going through your budget and you need to make a change in a line item to section 1 or section 2, make sure that you are recalculating section 3. Recalculate, make all the changes. Do not leave things. These things are gone through with a very fine tooth comb, and even the slightest penny being off will be noticed and sent back. Do you have a federally approved indirect cost rate? If so, use that and make sure it is updated in eGrants. That is also something that will be sent back. And do not forget your source of funds, which is the explanation of funds that you're using for your grantee share. Remember, we talked about that public-private partnership, making sure that you have diversified funding. Make sure that is in there and that all of your totals are matching up. And then a few key highlights on member costs. Required member costs include the living allowance, FICA, and in Washington, workers' compensation. So do budget for those things. However, some payroll departments do get a little confused in the difference between employees and AmeriCorps members, but remember, your AmeriCorps members are not employees. Therefore, you do not budget for unemployment or paid family medical leave premiums, or recently Washington implemented the Washington CARES Act for long-term care premiums. We do not include those for AmeriCorps members. AmeriCorps members are not eligible for these programs, and therefore they should not be liable for paying these traditional employee taxes. And finally, what you are here for today, talking about the narrative part of the application. I want to draw your attention to the weight. The weight is, again, different in previous years. What is not different is the executive summary. Does not weigh anything, and it is a template. Please follow that template. Exactly. Program design this year is worth 58% and will include your logic model with instructions for that logic model towards the bottom. I believe it's on page 20 so be sure to read that carefully. It also includes your performance measure and your evidence. The organizational capability is 17%, and then cost effectiveness and budget adequacy is 25%. In previous years, those were not really questions. This year, they are questions. Recompete applicants. The narrative questions have changed significantly, so please pay attention to the criteria. Answer every part of the question. Do not copy and paste your last application or rely on your previous application headings. As one of the reviewers, I can tell you now that every single word you type in is read very carefully and very thoroughly. Now, typically here is where we would go through the theory of change and the logic model in detail how to complete that. However, this year, AmeriCorps made significant changes in their guidance and how to complete that, how to complete the logic model, and they've modified the theory of change language to focus more on community need. And so AmeriCorps has created their own technical assistance kind of guide on how to complete and address that. And so that video will be linked on our website with this recording when this presentation is uploaded. So let's take a look at the additional documents that will accompany your application. All applicants will submit your organization's most recent audited financials. This could be a single audit if your organization is subject to federal single audit requirements, or simply your audited financial statements from a third-party auditor. You can submit it as a PDF or a link If a PDF is too large, submit any evaluations in support of your evidence tier and associated narrative. If you are competing for the first time, you will also be submitting your first evaluation plan. There is a template for this that will be on our website. If you are recompeting for a second time or a subsequent time, you will be submitting your evaluation report for the previous 3 years, as well as a new evaluation plan for the upcoming 3 years. And then lastly, if applicable, your labor union concurrence and or your Serve Washington waiver, if that is applicable to you. And a list of relevant information is also found in the RFTA. I wanted to draw your attention, a bulk of the narrative is the evidence here. So you have to submit evidence as additional documentation, and it is part of your narrative. In the narrative, you are asked to fully discuss how your program is either evidence-based or evidence-informed and why that matters to your programming. When you identify your program as evidence-based, this does mean that your program has been rigorously evaluated. What does that mean? That means that at least one randomized controlled trial or a quasi-experimental design evaluation has been conducted of the intervention you are describing throughout this application. That means it's science-based, it's proven. You have proof of demonstrated positive results for at least one key desired outcome of your intervention. Now, if your program is evidence-informed, then that means you've done your research. You have used the very best available knowledge and evaluations to guide your program design and implementation, and you don't quite have proof of success. You haven't gone through the evaluations, but you have incorporated research from other evidence-based programs into your program design, or you collected performance measurement data on the intervention you are describing throughout your application. The evidence you submit, whether you are evidence-based or informed, is based on this evidence tier. If you're pre-preliminary, then you're evidence-informed. And we want you to tell us more about that. Where did you get that performance data? Where is your research from? If it's preliminary, then you're evidence-based. And you've submitted, or you're submitting, up to 2 outcome evaluation reports. And these evaluation reports are non-experimental, but they show a positive result on at least one of your desired outcomes. You're telling us, you tell us, well, we're about moderate. So you have a well-designed and well-implemented evaluation report, and the report you provide for us is going to be conducted by an external source, and it uses experimental design evaluations, one of those randomized controlled trials, or maybe a quasi-experimental design evaluation, and it has statistically matched comparison groups and treatment groups. That's what we would be looking for from you. Or your evidence tier is strong, and you've done everything. You've given us everything that moderate would give us, but it's done at a national level, or maybe even a regional level, or a statewide level, but it includes multiple sites. And a little more on the evaluation plan. It is, as I said before, it is now a template. All applicants are going to enter NA in the eGrants field, and those who are required to submit an evaluation plan will do so using the template found on the website. Now, the evaluation plans are not scored as part of the grant making process, but if awarded, these evaluation plans will be reviewed and approved by Serve Washington. So it is in your best interest to fully answer each criteria within that template. Do not skip sections, and please be as detailed as possible. And if awarded and the plan is not approved, then applicants will need to revise their plan and get the plan approved in a timely manner. If you have any questions on the evaluation plan template or how to best address a section, Lou Thompson is a great resource, and you are welcome to contact Lou directly as part of your ongoing TTA for performance, also for performance measures. with the evaluation plan. I'm also available to speak with anyone about evidence, and Lou is available to speak with anyone about evidence as well. So e-grants tips. I'm looking again at everyone here today. You've all had experience with e-grants. You know how e-grants can get. So please create your application outside of e-grants in some sort of word processing document, and then save it, and then save it again. You know that e-grants does not allow for fancy formatting, but please do use headers. Make it easier for us to read and understand what you're saying, what you're answering, where all the information goes. Again, we do read very thoroughly. We do read every word. And we want to make sure that we are understanding what you are trying to tell us as we make these funding decisions. We are making very difficult funding decisions this year. So please help us give you your best chance at getting maximum funding this year. E-grants does automatically double space, so print it ahead of time and then look at it again. Save often. Read the NOFO that is attached for definitions, application instructions, supplemental guidance if you need more detailed definitions or things of that nature. Do not include any links or anything like that, but do cite your sources. Numbers and data, everything should match, be as accurate as possible. Please have someone else review. This is a Serve Washington decision, and so we will be reviewing, we will be reading, we will not be clarifying. So what you give us is what we have. Please give us your best chance. Do not reuse old application narratives. These are brand new questions. Update your data, update your statistics, update your evidence, reread the performance measures, make sure they match. And if they don't match, give us yours. And then verify all of the requirements that are based on the year of funding that you are in. And that is it for what we have for you today. Are there any questions? Are there any rules surrounding who may review for you? Let me open the chat here. Thank you for that. Hi, Diane. So any rules who may review for you? You mean after you write your application or review from the grant review committee? No, there are no rules. It is up to your discretion. However, if you do ask Serve Washington current staff to review it, we can just review it. We cannot give you much advice on it because we are deciding. So try anyone except Serve Washington staff, current staff. You're very welcome. Anyone else? I love that picture you have there, Christy. Does the 4 million include continuations? Yes, Jessica, it does. We have been hearing murmurings from the federal side that just federal funding does not look the way it used to. And so there have been cuts all across the board for multiple programs. And so it's not just AmeriCorps, it's not just AmeriCorps State and National, it's just across the board. So that is why we're asking, trying to be very explicit about make it your very best application. The dollar amount last year, Washington received a little over 4.1 million from AmeriCorps, and we had another $2 million in ARPA funds. And so we had a total of a little over 6 million available. You're very welcome. Okay, let me check the chat, see if I see anything else.
Micaiah, this is Mary. Thanks for your work on this. I know that the recording will be posted on our website, but I also know that sometimes there's a delay with that because of approvals that we need outside of our office. Can you make your slides available to me and to Sean to share with our programs that may request them?
Absolutely, yes, I can do that.
Thank you.
Yes. And has everyone here received the RFGA?
On Friday, Sean and I, we forwarded the website information to all of our own programs, and Lou reached out to the planning grants with that as well. So the RFGA would be on the website for them to access.
Fantastic, yes. And I see thumbs up and everything here. And has everyone signed in? Looks like yes. Are there any rules? I'm gonna make sure I've addressed every question in here. Okay, it looks like I have. Well, I hope everyone has an amazing week. Please jump right on those applications. If you have any questions, please send them through the general mailbox. And everyone have a great day.